Tired of bloating, fatigue and sluggish digestion? Meet your gut's new best friend, NutriHealth 365's microbiome supplement. Restore balance, boost immunity, and feel amazing from the inside out. Smart delay release capsules. Real results. Gut health just got personal.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's episode of Trending. Yes, I've got a moustache. I'm doing this year's Movember challenge. Nearly 33 years old, so I thought I might as well do it just once in my lifetime. Although, I'm going to lay down a gauntlet. I'm going to put my Just Giving page in the description of this episode. If I don't get £100 by the end of the day, then I'm just going to donate £100 of my own money and shave it off, because as you can see, it looks awful. And we're only on day 5. Now, the 5th of November, what does that mean? That means, well, a few things in this country. The gunpowder plot and the plans to overthrow the king of the time and all of that with Guy Fawkes and so on. It also marks the birthday of Iconic. Today is 6 years since this channel began in a tiny, freezing cold office in the centre of Derby, where literally, if you wanted to go and make a cup of tea, you had to psych yourself up because it was so cold. By the time you'd made your tea and walked back into the main office, your tea was cold. It was a hell of an experience, to say the least, and it was in quite a rough area of the city, so it used to be quite an interesting walk from the car park to the office. I remember getting offered cocaine at 6:30 in the morning. That sort of gives you a bit of context as to, I said no, obviously, gives you a bit of context to the area we were in. 6 years on, and obviously a lot has happened, and we're very, very grateful and appreciative to all the support that we've had from all of you around the world that have allowed us to create what you see here today. Right, so today we're going to focus on young people and children in particular, because there's a few stories around today that all have essentially led us towards stories involving young people. So we're going to focus the first part of the episode here on child obesity, because there's just been a study that's just been released this morning, which shows that nearly 1 in 3, or over 1 in 3 in various parts of the country, so 1 in 3, so a third as an average, of children in the UK are obese or considered obese before they even start primary school. So that's before they're 5 years old, which to me is the ultimate betrayal of parents, because they're not going and buying their own food. They're not sneaking off to McDonald's on the way home from work and not telling anybody. They're not going out and buying their own foods. They're not cooking their own foods. So as a result, children that are obese, that's a direct result of parents' choices, whether that be lazy parenting and just giving kids everything they want, which, as everyone knows, that's not how you parent a child. If you give someone, it's not how you deal with an adult. If you give someone everything they want, one, they're going to overindulge on things like this, and secondly, they're going to become spoiled and they're going to have no appreciation for the type of effort it takes to have things, and no gratefulness for what they have, if that's even a word. I'm not sure gratefulness is, but you get my point. So really, there's that aspect of it. And the other is just anything for a quiet life, I think, where parents just, say yes, and then my kids won't bother me. You could apply that same argument to just giving technology blindly to young children. And then the final point of it is complete ignorance as to what is in these foods, and also what the damage is long term to having weight issues when you're young. If you have weight issues when you're young, through your formative years where your body is forming, it's not just psychologically that you're forming through those early years, it's your body as well. So you're going to then cause yourself to have weight issues for the rest of your life. Hence why so many people that you saw that had weight issues in school will continue to have weight issues through their adult life. Not everyone, obviously. There's people that will take up sports. There's people that will, as they grow up, start to take more of a care about their health, of course. But as a whole, as an average, you're going to have a lot more health issues and a lot more weight issues as you get older if you have weight issues when you are young. So as a result, it's a big responsibility on parents to ensure that they are giving their kids the greatest possible start in life across the board. Whether that be what they put in their body, whether that be the things you let them watch, whether that be the way they psychologically develop, the way they're educated, all of those things are equally as important to each other. And this study just goes to show that that's not being taken seriously, to be honest. So the story reads on, almost a third of children in parts of the UK are overweight or obese by the time they start reception. Around 30% of 6-year-olds in County Durham were classed under this category. So that's one of the worst areas. Nationally, the rate is almost a quarter higher than last year. According to the NHS England, who published the data, 1 in 10 children alone were obese, the highest figure. So that's children overall, that's not just young children. Experts today have labelled the data concerning, and it acts as a stark reminder for poor children or child health, and that remains a serious issue in England. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has also vowed to act now and claim the government will not look away as kids get unhealthier. Childhood obesity has been a growing issue for years, with easy access to fast foods, more screen time, sedentary lifestyles, and are being blamed for spiralling rates in some parts of the UK. Okay, so if I just go back, and I'm sure you guys watching this that are my age and older will relate to this as well, is when we were kids, you went outside for a start. You spent so much of your free time outside, whether that was out on your bike, out on your scooters, playing football in the streets, playing cricket in the park, playing tennis on the beach, whatever. I mean, I was lucky I grew up by the beach, but either way, anyone that's got a park near them, which is pretty much everybody, you can take a football, jumpers for goalposts, you can go do running, do cross country, you can get out on your bikes, you can get out in nature, or just out walking, whatever it is. Playing hide and seek, climbing trees, all of those things are active. I have always looked back and felt very fortunate that things like, PlayStations, Xboxes and all of that were in their infancy, really, when I was a kid, and mobile phones weren't even a consideration. I didn't have my first smartphone till I was probably about 15, 16, by which point you've gone through this stage, and also you have a bit more about you at that age. You know that it's not all about that. Well, you did in that generation, maybe not this one. But the thing is that lifestyle's changed, as it points out in the story, a more sedentary lifestyle, a more lazy lifestyle where people are spending more time indoors, more time on screens, more time in front of televisions, and less time out in social environments, which is a big key as well. Another factor is obviously the food, as it raises, that it's now so easy to access fast food. There's McDonald's drive-through and other fast food outlets pretty much everywhere within 10 minutes of anyone in the country, it feels like these days. The supermarkets are full of so many toxic things. And this is where we bring ourselves to the conversation of ignorance, is who decides what is healthy and who decides what's allowed to be marketed on television and so on as healthy? Because if you've ever looked into things like breakfast cereals, for example, breakfast cereals, especially breakfast cereals aimed at children, are crazy high in sugar, in seed oils, in refined grains, all of those things that you don't want. But a lot of them are marketed as healthy starts to the day. For me, that is absolute, I can't even think of the right adjective to describe it. That's disgraceful, because it's so far from reality. So firstly, who's deciding that they are allowed to be marketed as healthy products? Now, I don't want a nanny state. I don't want a situation where you tell people everything they can eat and everything then they can't. But you do have to have informed consent, where if you're eating something, you know whether it's good or bad for you, and there's no subjectivity to that based on funding or based on anything else. It's just the truth. And therefore, you can make an informed decision. So if you're eating something unhealthy, you're under no illusion that that's going to do you any good. And then it's over to you, mate. You make your choices and you take the consequences. But when it comes to children, they're not really making the choice from an informed position. You're not going to explain to a 4-year-old how unhealthy a certain breakfast cereal is because it's high in sugar and fructose corn syrup and all of that. You're not going to explain that to a 4-year-old. So as a parent, you have to take that responsibility for them. And as they get older, you can educate them. But that's clearly not what's happening. And I would say a lot of that is because of an ignorance within the parents, where they are blindly believing that these food companies are pushing certain products as healthy options when they're far from that. You've only got to look at a list of ingredients in so many of these foods that are pushed on kids to see they contain so many ingredients that you would want nowhere near you. Whether that be some of the ones I just mentioned there, whether it be seed oils, whether it be refined carbs, whether it be high in sugars. All of those things, the devil's triad, as they get called by alternative health experts, those 3 things are so damaging to health, particularly for young people. And it's also, as well as damaging your health, it's going to damage your weight. Of course it is. Of course it is. And I think what's important to point out as well is, obviously I'm focusing on Britain because this study has come out today. But if you take these numbers to the wider world, in Australia, a quarter. I'm trying to look at other major countries. So Australia, a quarter of kids under the age of 5, 26.4%, so over a quarter, are considered overweight. That to me is absolutely astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. A quarter of children in a country like Australia are considered overweight. I'm just going to get the statistics up here for America as well, which is I have absolutely no doubt going to be very high on that list as well. I thought I had that on that page. Yep, 20% between the age of 2 and 19. So 20% between the age, 20.7%, so 21% essentially, between the ages of 6 and 11, 22% between the ages of 12 and 19, 13% between the ages of 2 and 5 are considered morbidly obese. How does that happen without conscientious stupidity, or conscious stupidity, should I say, from parents? And also a system, a food and drugs agency, as they have in America, a public health agency, as they have here in the UK, that are supposedly responsible for the quality of things like food and the education around those things. How are they in any way looking themselves in the mirror and seeing these statistics rise and rise and rise? There's so many factors that are leading to this, some of which we've discussed. A big one we haven't even discussed yet is money. These foods are cheap, they're readily accessible, they're convenient, while better, higher quality foods, whether that be higher quality grass-fed meats, organic vegetables, organic fruits, raw dairy, all of those things are becoming increasingly more and more expensive and increasingly more difficult to find quality. That's no accident either. At a time when obesity and health overall, because we're focusing on obesity today, but I could have easily focused on chronic diseases within the young as well, which are on the rise massively across the world. When you got that on the rise, as it is, and you're doing nothing to solve it, you know that nothing is being done to solve it on purpose. You don't want to solve it because you've only got to look at it from this perspective. I'm going to put I'm an economic genius hat on here. I work for the government. All I care about is productivity. All I care about is money. Right, okay. Well, if I have a young demographic of people, which are going to be the adults of tomorrow, who are a very ill demographic, a very ill generation of people because of the foods they're taking in. They're morbidly obese in large numbers. They have chronic diseases in large numbers. Well, they're not going to go into the workplace and be really productive and earn me lots of money in tax then, are they? For me to go and blow up the wall and give to me mates. So it's in my interest for the younger population, the next generation of workers, to be healthy, vibrant, and ready to work and put the effort in to make the money, to pay the taxes, so I benefit. If you're looking at it purely from that perspective, you would go, well, it makes no sense. It's like somebody running a company and not wanting their staff to be fit and healthy. Well, of course, a fit and healthy group of staff are going to be more productive than an overweight and unhealthy one. That's not a controversial thing to say. That's just fact. So why wouldn't the government want the same principle? Why wouldn't they want a population of healthy people who are going to work harder and be less dependent on the state? Because if you're coming in with chronic diseases and you're coming in with obesity, you're going to lead to more illnesses, and therefore you're going to have more dependency on things like the NHS, on the welfare system. So that again doesn't make any sense if what you're trying to build is a strong economy. Now, let's take the economy hat off and go, let's put the cult hat on. Well, if I have a generation of weak, overweight, chronically inflamed people, they're not going to fight back, are they? They're not going to be in a position to stand up and speak up and go, no, I'm not having this. If I have a generation of people that love being outside, that love playing in nature, that have wide eyes, they're going to want to ask a few more questions. Let's get them inside. Let's get them on screens. Let's get them consumed and obsessed with social media and what everyone else is doing rather than what they're doing. Let's get them comparing their lives to everyone else and thinking theirs is insignificant because they don't have the Bentley and the 5-star resort in Malibu. Let's create that narrative, because those people aren't going to push back, are they? You're also creating a generation, just to segue slightly, that are so ingrained and obsessed with technology that when you want to roll out your technological agenda, they're going to be on board with it. They're going to think it's a good idea because they've known nothing else. As I said at the top, I was probably 14, 15 maybe when I first got a smartphone. And I only got that because I went to a school in a different town and had to get public transport every day. And then when I got a little moped, my mum was insistent I had a phone on me at all times, obviously, in case I hurt myself or fell off or something, or it broke down. Makes sense. But before that, childhood was all about being outside. It was all about playing football in the street. It was about 5 of us in the same year that all lived in the same street. We were out every night. And as a result, you then had a comparison when technology came as to what went before. And you know that is so much better. That's why now, the second I get home from work, if the sun is out, me and my kids are in the street, on the scooters, in the park playing football, on the bikes. You know, that is so much more beneficial for your health and also your mental health, and also for a overall kind of world view that not everything happens online and the best things in life always still will happen offline. That's so important. Whereas young kids today, they don't have that in many ways because technology has been used a little bit as a free babysitter where, you know, put them in front of the games console and so on. And I think that's a really dangerous precedent. I think that's led a lot to this obesity, as that story I pointed out from the UK, a more sedentary lifestyle, which is a more, you know, sitting on your arse, essentially not doing anything lifestyle, has led to weight issues. Of course it has. If you're more active, if you get up and walk more, if you go to the gym, if you go running, if you play football in the street, if you do gymnastics, whatever you do, you don't have to do any of the things I just mentioned. There's so many things that you can do. Well, if you do those, of course you're going to lose weight. You're going to be naturally fitter. And also those positive things release positive endorphins, which are addicting, which make you want to do it even more. So it's a positive cycle. Whereas what you have with the sedentary lifestyle is the other way. You sit, you do nothing, you feel more tired. Like I woke up this morning and I felt shattered when I got up. I then went and did some exercise and I feel so much more energized from doing exercise than I did when I first woke up. So sometimes it's a vicious cycle. You don't do anything, you feel tired, you feel lethargic, and that makes you feel then worse and you just feel even less motivated to get up and do something. I think it's very, very important that this becomes a real topic of conversation for parents, because it's your job, for a start, to look after your children until they're old enough to make decisions for themselves. And if a 2-year-old is obese, as these stats say here in America, 13% are, that's not their decisions, is it? That's yours as the parent. So therefore, that responsibility needs to be taken more seriously, in my opinion. Now, I'm not just having a go at people here because that's not going to change anything, but I think it's really important to be aware of the damage that can be done if you don't take it seriously. It's so important that we give our kids the best possible start in life. So for me, that would be absolutely not vaccinating them and doing the research to make sure that you're comfortable with that decision. You've read everything on both sides of the argument and you've come to your own conclusion. Don't blindly believe what I say, because I didn't and I haven't been. Don't blindly believe what your doctor says to you because you think they've got more qualifications than you have. They're just repeating what they have been told. Do your own research. Figure it out for yourself. Ask questions. Go to your doctor and ask questions based on the research you found. Can they answer them? I guarantee they can't. Ask for the drug company inserts that come with these vaccines. Read the potential side effects. Read what the drug companies say about them. Look at the statistics and ask those questions. When it comes to food, look at what the ingredients are in the foods you're giving to your children. Google them. Find out what they really are. Do they need to be there? What are the potential risks of having them? Also, a big one as well, I do this, me and my wife do this, is when our kids have something new, observe their behaviour. Does it make them act out? Do they go hyper? Do they start behaving in a silly way? Like my youngest son, give him an ounce of sugar, honestly, he becomes a lunatic. So you observe that. And that's a big point as well. Observing the way that they behave. Ask your kids as well. Communication, just like you do when you're an adult. When you have something to eat, you sort of are aware of how you feel following that. If you feel sluggish, feel tired, do you feel like it's not digesting properly and you feel bloated? Well, if you did as an adult, you probably wouldn't have that food again. So talk to your kids. How do you feel after eating? Do you feel like okay? Do you feel tired? And as you go, you'll start to build a profile of what foods work for your kids, what are healthy, what they should be eating, what they shouldn't be, encouraging them to do some form of exercise and get out into nature, into the real world, not stuck behind a screen constantly. That's our job as parents. We are really the last generation, I'd say mine and maybe a couple of years younger as well, that can remember the world before technology became so ingrained and the young people became so obsessed with it in every area of their lives. It's important that we communicate those messages. We take that experience that we've had from before and bring it into the modern world. You know, really educate our kids that the best things in life do not happen online. The best things in life happen outside, when you're with friends, when you're with people that care about you and you care about. And also how you can't just blindly put toxic foods in your body and expect to not have some kind of health problems. So we know, as I've explained, the system does not want healthy, vibrant people. Certainly does not want healthy, vibrant children. So let's stop looking at health secretaries. Let's stop looking at FDAs. Let's stop looking at drug manufacturers. And let's stop looking at food manufacturers and these large multinational corporations, thinking they have your best interests at heart of you and your children. Because they don't. They don't. You need to take that responsibility for yourself. Just like our messages are here at Iconic most days, it has to start with you. Don't put your life or your children's life or responsibility for that in someone else's hands. Because one, they're not going to care about it as much as you. Of course they're not. You should care more about your children than any other person in the world. So therefore, you should be the one that takes that responsibility to do what's best for them. And also, as we said, there's actually an active agenda to make your kids and then the adults of tomorrow unhealthy. So one of the greatest ways, I say this all the time, I used to say it on Health Code pretty much every week, one of the greatest ways to stick two fingers up to this control system is to take your health seriously. Because it's one of the ways they are trying to destroy us, is to attack our health. Because people of poor health are much more dependent on the system and much easier to control. So that's my closing message for this first part. Don't look to organisations, don't look to governments, and don't look to corporations and regulatory bodies to take control of this issue. It has to start with us as parents. And if we do it, we can make a big change to our kids and the next generation and lay some really good foundations for positive health, not negative, as we're seeing the trends are at the moment. Right, if you want to head over to iconic.com, we'll put the link in the description for the remainder. Geez, I can't even speak. We'll put the link in the description for the remainder of the episode. As I mentioned, I've got a dreadful moustache, but I'm trying to raise money for Movember. So I've got a link in the description of this episode on YouTube and Twitter. If you want to donate, please do. £100 by the end of the day is the gauntlet I've laid down. If not, I will pay £100 myself and get rid of it because it's awful and my wife's given me a lot of stick already after just not even 5 days yet. So click the link in the description below or go and donate some money over to Movember. It's a good cause. And I'll catch you on iconic.com where we're going to face another 3 stories. We're going to talk about fake news in schools. We're going to talk about human error being blamed for dropping grooming gang charges here in the UK. And we're going to talk about Rachel Reeves' speech yesterday where she managed to disengage and annoy just about everybody in this country. See you soon.